I sat frozen in the meeting room, trying to keep my breathing as quiet as possible, afraid that even the slightest sound might draw Amara Whitmore's gaze toward me. She didn't sit down right away. Amara stood at the head of the table, one hand resting lightly on the back of a chair, her sharp eyes sweeping slowly across each person in the room, as if she were waiting for us to confess our sins before she even spoke a word. No one dared to speak. The air was thick, heavy as a thick layer of fog on a winter morning. Everyone bowed their heads, avoiding eye contact. I could hear Marta's pen scratching softly across the page of notes, monotonous and tense. Finally, Amara spoke. Her voice wasn't loud, nor was it harsh, but it was cold and sharp like the edge of a thin blade. "All right, who wants to start?" Kayla, sitting slightly to my left, kept her head down and mumbled, I didn't realize who you were, Miss Whitmore. I thought." Amara tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing as she pushed out a question, like setting a trap. "Thought what?" Kayla's face flushed deep red. She swallowed hard, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "I thought you were just a walk-in." Without a reservation, Amara showed no emotion. She merely raised an eyebrow and asked again, her voice as calm as if she were reading a mundane report. "And so you decided to refuse service before even verifying all the information?" Kayla only nodded, nearly drained of all strength. Neil, who was usually the embodiment of confidence, couldn't bear the suffocating silence this time. He hurriedly cut in, his voice awkward and shaky. "It's really because of internal security procedures, Miss Whitmore. We're trained to thoroughly screen unfamiliar guests. If someone can't be quickly verified, employees are authorized to request additional identification." Amara cut him off. She didn't need to raise her voice, but each word landed like a nail driven into the table. "You just incriminated yourself. No thorough verification, no accurate confirmation, and the default choice was suspicion instead of support." Neil fell silent, his body stiffening in his chair. No one dared to move. The room was so heavy I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my chest. Amara crossed her arms, her gaze detached, as if she were watching a live dissection of our souls. "I'm not here to fire anyone today, but I am here to root out the disease that has taken hold in this place, judging others by appearances, by prejudice, by invisible fears." And at that moment, I knew, after today, this company would never be the same again. Amara Whitmore, 48, CEO of a luxury hotel chain that bore her name, stepped through the revolving doors of the Oakmark Grand Hotel in Des Moines, Iowa. No music, no red carpet, and no one had the slightest idea that the woman in the understated charcoal gray slacks and light blue blouse was the true owner of the lavish building. Amara didn't need a grand entrance. She wanted one simple thing: a quiet night before an important board meeting. She carried a plain canvas tote, had no assistant in tow, and no cumbersome luggage. She walked slowly, quietly, as if she were just another traveler looking for a room. Behind the front desk, Lily Sanchez was absently chewing on her pen cap, her acrylic nails tapping against the keyboard. When she saw Amara approach, she offered a reflexive smile, the kind reserved for guests she was about to turn away. "Good evening, how can I help you?" Amara returned the smile with calm politeness. "I'm checking in. The reservation is under Whitmore, Amara." Lily typed a few keys, then paused, her brows furrowed slightly. "I'm sorry, I don't see your name in the system. The hotel is fully booked at the moment." Her voice shifted, no longer friendly, now cold and distant, like a barrier suddenly raised. "We only accommodate guests with confirmed reservations." Amara's smile didn't waver. She tilted her head slightly, her eyes drifting to the brass plaque mounted behind the desk. "Oakmark, Grand, a Whitmore Group property." Then she said, clearly and slowly, "I am a guest, and more than that, I own this hotel." Lily froze. She looked momentarily flustered, then masked it with a strained half-smile. She reached for the internal phone. "Let me call the manager." A few heads in the lobby began to turn toward Amara. A golf-clad couple stopped chatting. A man quietly closed his laptop, pretending to be busy but clearly listening. Moments later, Eric Caldwell, the assistant hotel manager, hurried over, his tie crooked and a notepad wedged under his arm. He glanced at Amara, eyes flicking over her like a scan, and spoke with rehearsed courtesy. "I understand there's an issue with the reservation." Lily quickly interjected. "She says she's the owner." Eric raised an eyebrow and looked at Amara, skepticism unmistakable. Amara's expression remained unchanged. She nodded calmly. "Yes, I'm Amara Whitmore." A tense silence fell over the space. Eric licked his lips, then stammered, "We'll need to verify that information if you'll kindly wait a moment." He turned away abruptly, while Lily subtly signaled for security to approach. Not a public scene, but enough to send a message. "We don't believe you." Amara stood still, her gaze unwavering. She knew this look well. The look of doubt, of judgment, of bias. Not because she lacked identification, but because she didn't look like what they expected a hotel mogul to be. Not a man, not white, not dripping in diamonds or designer logos. She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. Instead, he pulled out her phone, made one call, and in less than 30 seconds, the world around her began to shift. Amara Whitmore didn't need much time to explain. She didn't need to argue. All it took was one phone call. On the other end, a firm male voice answered after 3 rings. "What's going on?" Amara replied calmly, her voice low and steady. "I'm at the Oakmark Grand. I was refused check-in. Reason? Not a guest." No further explanation was needed. "We'll take care of it immediately," the voice responded, sharp as a blade. Maria ended the call and slipped the phone back into her bag. She leaned gently against a marble column in the lobby, eyes fixed on the front desk like a general calmly surveying the battlefield. Lily, the receptionist, pretended to keep typing. Eric, the assistant manager, fidgeted and glanced nervously toward the back office. Security guards hovered nearby, forming an invisible perimeter. But there was one thing they couldn't see, the wave about to crash down on them. Just 5 minutes later, the elevator chimed. 2 men emerged, one in a silver-gray suit, face pale, Brandon Ellis, regional vice president. The other, wearing a black polo with the company logo, David Romero, director of operations. Both stormed toward Amara, their expressions taut as they saw her still standing there, composed, hands relaxed, eyes sharp as a blade hidden in velvet. "Miss Crimson," Brandon called out, almost pleading, "we sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. We take full responsibility." Eric and Lily froze. In that moment, the truth crashed down on them like concrete. David cast a quick glance at the front desk, then turned back with a stiff smile. "The presidential suite has been prepared. A private car has been dispatched. Breakfast will be served in-room along with your usual espresso." Amara gave the faintest smile, not out of satisfaction, but because she was all too familiar with how the world scrambles to correct itself only once it realizes who truly holds the power. Brandon lowered his voice, serious now. "We've ordered a full audit of front desk procedures. An internal review starts immediately." Amara nodded, her tone calm, but each word struck like a hammer. "Good, but I'll also need to speak with those directly involved." Her eyes moved toward Lily and Eric. Lily turned pale. Eric swallowed hard, clipboard trembling in his hands. Amara wasn't demanding fear. What she demanded, simply, was understanding. That her presence didn't need to be accepted to be valid. Brandon gave a signal to David, and within 3 minutes the check-in process was complete. 2 brand new key cards, a report summarizing the incident, and a written commitment to retrain the front desk staff from the ground up. Amara said nothing more. She simply took the key card, turned, and walked toward the elevators, each step graceful and certain. And this time, no one in the lobby could take their eyes off her. Not because she was different, but because At last they saw who truly owned the room. The elevator doors closed behind Amara Whitmore, sealing off the murmurs, glances, and confusion left in the lobby. Inside the lift, she stood tall, her fingers lightly gripping the two-room keycards. Room 2402, the top floor. She had ridden in more luxurious, larger, faster elevators before, but never had one felt this heavy. Not from physical weight, but from the burden of awareness, the weight of glances filled with admiration, regret, and calculation. Amara looked directly into the mirror inside the elevator. She didn't see a 48-year-old businesswoman in an expensive suit. She didn't see the woman who had expanded the Claiborne hotel chain across the United States. She simply saw a woman of color standing there, wondering, no matter how high you rise, will it ever be enough to escape the biases living inside other people's minds? When the elevator chimed softly and the doors opened onto the 24th floor, the penthouse level of the Oakmark Grand, a young bellhop dressed in crisp black uniform was already waiting. He bowed politely, without hesitation, without judgment. "Good evening, Miss Whitmore. I'm Liam. I'll be assisting you tonight. Your suite has been thoroughly prepared." Amara nodded slightly, her face neutral, but inwardly she acknowledged true professionalism doesn't decide how to treat someone based on appearances. Liam opened the door to Suite 2402 and stepped aside. Inside, the air carried a light scent of citrus and sandalwood, walnut furnishings, cream-colored leather sofas, and a crystal chandelier shimmered under the soft lights. A tray of fresh fruit awaited on the coffee table, along with a compact espresso machine and 3 neatly arranged capsules, Colombia, Ethiopia, and Sumatra, her favorites. Next to it lay a simple handwritten note. "Welcome back to the Oakmark Grand, Miss Whitmore. We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience and are committed to making it right." No signature, no name. Amara set down her duffel bag, slipped off her shoes, and stepped onto the balcony. The cool night breeze of Des Moines teased through her hair. Below, the city lit up, streams of cars flowing like lifeblood through the veins of the streets. She closed her eyes. No anger, no bitterness, just a deep, quiet exhaustion. For how many times in her life had she needed to use her achievements, her wealth, her power, just to prove that she deserved to be treated like a human being? She sat down in the balcony armchair and opened her phone. A message from her assistant, Ayla, had arrived. "Everything's in motion. The audit team from headquarters will arrive within 48 hours. No press involved yet, as per your instructions." Amara gave a faint, dry smile. The press? Viral headlines? Outrage on social media? No, not this time. She didn't need a crowd to rally behind her. She needed real change. She put the phone down, poured herself a cup of espresso, watching the hot steam curl into tiny circles. That night, in Suite 2402, she didn't write anything about what had happened. She didn't plan retaliation. She didn't seethe in anger. She simply repeated one quiet vow to herself. I don't need them to recognize me to exist, but I will make them change how they see everyone who comes after me. Amara Whitmore stepped out of the elevator onto the ground floor of Oakmark Grand, her dark gray suit fitting her slender figure perfectly, a crisp white shirt under the blazer, and her black heels clicking a steady rhythm against the marble floor. She was no longer a guest seeking permission to enter. She was the owner. And this time, everyone knew it. The front desk, dark, the silent battlefield from the previous night seemed to shrink back as she walked past. Kayla, the young receptionist, no longer glanced at her phone. She stood upright, clutching her pen tightly, her eyes wide as if afraid to miss a single signal. Neil, the assistant manager, was also present. His shirt was soaked in sweat beneath his cheap suit jacket, and he looked as though he wanted to disappear behind the counter. In the lounge area, Brent, the regional director, and Carlos, the head of operations, were seated, folders thick with paperwork in hand, cold coffee sitting untouched on the table. Their faces were drawn with exhaustion and anxiety. Amara simply nodded and made her way straight into the VIP conference room next to the concierge desk. It was a sealed room with soft golden lighting and soundproof frosted glass doors. Inside, already waiting, Neil, the assistant manager from last night, Kyla, the young receptionist, Marta, a senior HR representative from Claiborne Group headquarters. Amara didn't sit down immediately. She stood at the head of the table, her hand lightly resting on the chair, her gaze sweeping over each person as if waiting for them to confess before she even spoke. No one made a sound. The air thickened, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Amara spoke, her voice light yet sharp as a blade. "All right. Who would like to start?" Kayla lowered her head, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't realize who you were, Ms. Whitmore. I thought—" Amara tilted her head slightly, pushing the question out like setting a trap. "Thought what?" Kayla swallowed hard, her face flushing crimson. "I thought you were just a walk-in guest, no reservation." Amara raised an eyebrow, her tone cool. "And so, you decided to deny service before fully verifying the information?" Kayla nodded, so small it was almost invisible. Unable to bear the crushing silence, Neil jumped in, his voice flustered. "It was really due to internal security protocols, Ms. Whitmore. We're trained to vet unknown guests thoroughly. If someone can verify quickly, employees are authorized to request additional checks." Amara cut him off, her tone still soft but laced with command. "You've just indicted yourself. You didn't verify properly. You didn't authenticate accurately. And your default setting was suspicion, not support." Neil froze, stiff in his chair. The room grew so tense that the faint scratching of Marta's pen on her notepad sounded deafening. Amara crossed her arms, her gaze detached, overseeing the scene as if observing a delicate surgery. "I'm not here to fire anyone today, but I am here to clean out the disease that has rooted itself in this place, judging people by appearance, by bias, by invisible fear." Brent inhaled deeply before presenting. "Last night, we immediately issued an action directive. All staff will undergo retraining on guest service with a focus on bias-free approach. The HR department will conduct secret shopper audits across all Claiborne Group hotels within the next 90 days. The identification process for owners and major shareholders will be updated and distributed to all frontline employees." Amara nodded slowly. No words of praise, no approving smiles, because these were things they should have done from the start. She paced around the table, slowly, submerging everyone in the weight of her scrutiny. Now, she stopped in front of Kayla. "After today, if a guest walks in, dressed simply, quietly, without a VIP card, what will you do?" Kayla wrung her hands together and whispered, I will welcome them like anyone else. Verify thoroughly before making any assumptions. Always treat them with respect." Amara smiled, faintly, not mockingly, not encouragingly, just quietly. "That is how a brand survives," she said. And with that, she ended the meeting. No applause, no grand affirmations, only silence. The silence of awakening. After the meeting, everyone gradually filed out of the room. Brent and Carlos quickly dispersed to begin implementing the new plan. Neil hurried toward the management office, his back hunched as if carrying a heavy burden. Only Kayla remained, frozen at the doorway, her face pale, both hands clutching the hem of her uniform. Amara Whitmore didn't leave immediately. She stayed, gently removing the slim watch from her wrist and placing it on the table, as if shedding all titles and power, leaving just one human being facing another. She motioned, "Come with me." No raised voice, no command. Yet Kayla quietly followed as if by instinct. Amara led her down a narrow hallway, turning into the staff break room, a cramped space with battered plastic tables and vending machines humming in the background. No glamorous lights, no wealthy guests, only raw humanity. Amara pulled out a chair and sat down. Kayla stood awkwardly like a child caught misbehaving. "Sit," Amara said. Kayla hesitantly lowered herself into the seat across from her, head bowed low as if afraid her soul might be read. Silence, long and heavy. Finally, Amara asked softly, "Kayla, when was the last time someone judged you by your appearance?" Kayla looked up, eyes already glistening red. "Just last month," she whispered. "At a convenience store, an old man saw me coming and clutched his wallet tightly when I stepped up to the counter. Just because I was wearing my old greasy restaurant uniform and my hair was uncombed." Her voice trembled. Amara nodded slowly. "How did that make you feel?" she asked. Kayla gave a broken, bitter laugh. "Like I was so small no one would even bother to hear me out. Like they decided who I was the moment they looked at me." Amara leaned forward, voice firm and steady. "Then why, Kayla, did you do exactly that to me last night?" Kayla broke into tears, not from fear of losing her job, but from the raw, painful realization sinking in. "I didn't know. I just thought that someone who owned a huge hotel would look different. They would walk in with bodyguards, expensive luggage, glossy suits. But you look like anyone else, and I was wrong." Amara stayed silent, letting Kayla confront her own truth. No rush, no sermonizing. Only after the sobs quieted did Amara speak again. "Kayla, real leadership doesn't wear expensive clothes. It lives in how people rise after being underestimated. I don't need you to see me as a CEO. I need you to see people as human beings first, before deciding who or what they are." Kayla choked out, "I will change, I promise." Amara smiled, a full, genuine smile, the first after a long, exhausting stretch. "Don't change for me, change for yourself." She stood, giving Kayla's shoulder a light pat, not from superiority but from a very human kind of acknowledgement. The greatest lessons in life often begin with the most painful mistakes. Luckily, you still have the chance to make it right. Then Amara walked out of the break room, leaving Kayla wiping her tears, yet with the faintest glimmer of hope on her lips, the first flicker of light for a long journey ahead. After her conversation with Kayla, Amara Whitmore didn't head straight to rest. She returned to the management office, where Brent and Carlos were huddled over a makeshift action plan. At the sight of her, both immediately straightened up and fell silent. Amara glanced over the draft they had hastily put together. New process charts, rushed notes about retraining staff, a plan for regular anonymous inspections. She folded her arms, contemplating for a few seconds. "Sounds decent," she said evenly. "But decent isn't enough. I don't want Oakcrest Grand to just put out fires after a crisis. I want it to become the model." Brent swallowed hard, hastily flipping through a few more pages. "We're preparing to launch an internal campaign. We're calling it Dignity First." Carlos chimed in eagerly. Mara gave a slight nod. "Good idea. But do you really understand what Dignity First means?" Both men exchanged a slightly sheepish glance. She moved closer to the board, picked up a red marker, and circled two hurriedly scribbled phrases: polite communication and complaint handling. "This is just crisis management," she said, "not a shift in mindset. Dignity First doesn't start when a guest complains. It starts the moment a staff member sees them walk through the door." She raised her head, her gaze sharp. "I want a new training program, not just for service skills, but for seeing people." Brent scribbled notes furiously. Carlos nodded rapidly. Amara continued, "Use real-world scenarios, put employees in the shoes of those who have been judged unfairly, make them feel what it's like to be doubted, to be overlooked, to be dismissed by a single glance." Her voice dropped slightly, but it lost none of its certainty. Only when people have felt that pain can they truly stop perpetuating it. The room was dead silent. No one dared to add anything unnecessary. Amara set the marker down and crossed her arms. "And I'm not going to wait for you to finish. Starting next week, I'll be personally visiting any property anonymously without prior notice." Brent opened his mouth, perhaps to ask a question, but when he caught Amara's gaze, he simply nodded. Carlos managed a weak smile. "We'll be ready, ma'am." Amara gave a faint smile, sharp as a razor blade. "You're not getting ready for me," she said. "You're getting ready for the guests who never dared to speak up. They deserve to be seen. They deserve to be welcomed. And we, from the front desk to the executive office, must be the ones who open the door for them, not close it." Her words fell into the room like the toll of a heavy bell, changing the atmosphere completely. No more tense, fearful energy, only a profound, solemn seriousness. Amara Whitmore knew full well the greatest changes didn't need loud fanfare. They started with the smallest conversations, the real ones repeated until they became culture. The morning at Oakcrest Grand passed by as if nothing had ever happened. Guests still ordered coffee, wheeled their suitcases, and asked for directions to the nearby convention center. The elevator chimed steadily, and sunlight poured through the large glass windows, bathing the lobby in a golden glow. But beneath that serene surface, unseen currents were shifting. Amara Whitmore walked across the grand lobby with a demeanor completely different from the night before. No rush, no need for display, only steadiness, quiet and undeniable. The new front desk staff, those who had witnessed the entire ordeal, bowed their heads slightly as she passed. Not out of fear, but out of respect. A bow entirely different from the scrutinizing looks they had once given her. Kayla Mendez, still on her morning shift, stood neatly behind the counter, both hands resting flat on the desk. As Amara walked by, Kayla looked up, her eyes filled with gratitude and determination. Amara said nothing. She simply nodded lightly, enough to send a silent message. "I see you. Keep going." Carlos and Brent stood near the exit, trying not to look overly conspicuous, but their eyes constantly swept across the lobby, checking every detail. Was anyone disrespecting a guest? Was any chair out of place? Was every smile genuine enough? When Amara reached the door, the young doorman, who had hesitated the night before, stepped forward quickly, holding the door wide open with a deep bow. "Have a wonderful day, Miss Whitmore. We look forward to welcoming you back." Amara smiled, warm and sincere. "Thank you. I'll be back. And I hope to see an even better Oakcrest Grand." She stepped out into the street. The cool morning breeze brushed against her face, but inside, a quiet warmth was blooming. This wasn't just a small victory at one hotel. It was the prelude to something she had spent a lifetime building. A world where people like her didn't have to flash credentials just to prove they belonged. As her car turned off Grant Avenue, Amara didn't look back. She didn't need to. She knew that behind her a door had truly opened. 94 is about time for you." The car glided smoothly down the boulevard toward the airport. No radio, no chatty driver. Only the soft whisper of wind slipping through the cracked window and the steady, calm rhythm of Amara Whitmore's heartbeat. She leaned back against the seat, gazing absently out the window. Rows of red brick houses blurred into the distance, small shops receded behind them, and highway billboards flashed by in a fleeting stream. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small folded note. Kayla's handwritten letter. "Miss Whitmore, thank you for showing me that sometimes change begins with listening and seeing oneself. Kayla." A faint smile touched Amara's lips. Not out of triumph, not out of pride, but because she knew a seed had been planted. No one should enter this world constantly having to prove their worth. No one should have to apologize for their existence because of their skin color, gender, age, or background. She had learned that truth the hard way, and today, with quiet but unwavering strength, she had passed it on. Sometimes, the most important lessons aren't found in speeches or slogans. They are held in the way you stand firm against prejudice, quiet and steady, like stone against a rushing stream. The car turned onto the airport access road. Amara tucked the note back into her wallet, straightened her jacket, and readied herself. Before stepping out, she took out her phone, opened the Notes app, and typed a line. You don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to walk like you have always belonged. And she knew this wasn't just a lesson for the staff at Oakcrest Grand. It was a lesson for anyone who had ever been met with doubtful eyes, a reminder for every heart that had ever felt lost in a cold, indifferent world. Amara Whitmore stepped out of the car, pulled her suitcase lightly behind her, and blended into the bustling crowds inside the terminal. She didn't need anyone to clear a path. She didn't need applause or recognition. She only needed herself, and that was enough.